going on, good people? What's going on, good people? And welcome back to the Rolo Runs the City podcast. I am your host, Rolo. And I know it's been a long time. I was actually supposed to drop this podcast a little earlier. However, we ran into a couple of hiccups or whatnot. But no matter what, we are still here. So therefore, I am here to go ahead and give you what you need. And you guys already know what that is. That is being the best at what I do, and that is get over the hump and make things happen. You guys already know sometimes we have an issue with hiccups that are in the way, but of course this is all about leveling up any way you can, always chasing greatness. And even when you really don't quite catch up to it, no matter what, you are definitely above average. So therefore, put in the work and you do what you got to do. But anywho, today's topic is, of course, about overcoming adversity. And overcoming adversity has been something that I actually had to, get through recently. As recent as the beginning of this month, we had the Atlanta Publix marathon here in Georgia, and of course, I'm no stranger to the marathons. I've already done a few of them, so this one I felt was going to be no different. However, when I think it's Mike Tyson that said everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth, and I'm going to tell you this: I got punched in the mouth. But like I said, in today's episode, we're going to discuss about overcoming adversity, and like I said, I had my own personal experience, earlier this month during that marathon. So, things that I was actually dealing with, I was nursing some nagging injuries. I wasn't actually, able to recover the way I wanted to recover. And I actually got into a position where I wasn't even training. I didn't properly train for this marathon. It was something that was absolutely difficult in reference to trying to overcome an obstacle when you haven't really prepped for it. So I had no training whatsoever. And, what I actually tried to do was work out other areas of the body just to make sure that I stayed in shape. Didn't want to fall off and falter in any way. So these are some of the things that I wanted to make sure that I got done. Was don't let the whole, wagon just fall off because, the wheels aren't doing what they're supposed to do. So without further ado, let's get into what I had to get done. So I had no choice, but to get this thing done. And it was something I signed up for. I do recommend, I haven't done it, but I'll start doing it from here on out. I normally don't purchase insurance for my registrations because I'm like, dude, I'm going to be there no matter what. Like, my mindset's there. But, things do happen. Emergencies happen. Injuries happen. And for me, I felt like if I would have purchased insurance for this, it would have gave me an out on not doing it. But I will say this, I was hurting badly, and I got hurt during training, and it wasn't even running. I mean, it was just basically like lifting weights, doing some stuff, and things happen, muscles get pulled, things get strained. And of course you do this because you want to make sure that you don't suffer from any sort of atrophy in reference to aging. If you don't use it, you lose it. We already know that. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to make sure that even though I had these nagging injuries, I made sure I did what I could to try to maintain shape. So then that way I just didn't really just fall off the wagon. But anywho, so without that training, I already knew it was going to be quite difficult, But the fact that I ran marathons before, I had to rely on my experience. But with experience is not enough. If your body can't fully go, like, you can't go. And I think one of the issues that I ran into was the fact that my experience let me know how my body was going to react at what mileage it was going to react at, especially with a marathon that you're familiar with. Even ones that you're not familiar with, you know when you hit that metaphorical wall. Some people hit the wall in mile 18, mile 20, things of that nature. Some people hit it a little earlier. It all depends on, what your wall is. But I think one of the things that really just messed me up was the fact that I had this injury and I didn't know when the wall was going to hit me, because I know what it normally does when I do train. I'm like, okay, well, I know mile 17 I'm going to hit the wall a little bit. And man, I guess I hit the wall right off the rip because of the fact that I didn't train. So, and I don't say that like to brag, because, I was fortunate enough to finish the marathon. So trust me, I don't recommend anybody do anything without the proper training, but it was something that I had to get done. So it's just the way I'm wired. But anywho, I did a cold water immersion in the morning, did my breathing techniques, trying to open my lungs up, with hopes that I can go, and, I kept, I kept really trying to keep a positive outlook, and I knew it wasn't looking good. And the crazy thing was it was 30 degrees outside that morning. Wind chill was kicking a little bit, so I probably felt about like 25, 26. Luckily, it, warmed up, in the middle of the day. But I was moving as fast as I've ever moved in a marathon. For me, it was a lot because of the fact that my strides aren't really big, but, my strides were like 49 inches, which is a little bit over 4 feet, as I'm running. And I was moving at a great pace. And, the funny thing was that, I'm blocking the pain out of my mind. And once I hit mile 7, the body reminded me that I was injured. So unfortunately, I had to pivot. It was something I never did before in a marathon. Normally, when I'm making a good time, I'm like, okay, well, I know I'm just a little bit over 2 hours once I hit mile 13. And, you start conserving a little energy so that way you can give a good push, in the second half. And, you get to a point where you start working the Galloway method, where you're like walking a little bit and you run a little bit, you walk a little bit more, then you run. And my toolbox was so limited because of the fact that normally the way I run, I depend on, my respiratory and, to be honest with you, my glutes big time when I'm hitting hills. And unfortunately, I couldn't do that because of the fact that it seems that I lost so much power, in my run, where all the things that I traditionally do to get me through, I couldn't do. And once my toolbox was limited and my typical strategies were out the window, I said there's only one thing that I could do, and it was just, run as much as you can with the, limited amount of stretching ability that you can in reference to the stride, because my stride drastically went down. I was not hitting a 49 inch, stride when I was running after mile 7. But I said to myself, I need to make sure that I don't stop running, because if I stop running, I'm going to just stop the marathon, period. And I was actually able to run something that I've never done, but I was actually able to run 22 miles without stopping. And, normally, I would rest up in between. Once I hit the halfway mark, I'll rest up a little bit in reference to I'll walk a little bit, then I'll get back at it like I mentioned earlier. But I knew I didn't have this luxury of, okay, I can go back and go back pace and hit 7-8 miles an hour like I want to. So with that being said, I actually had to just keep running. So I would hit the aid stations, I would run, get my fuel, I would run, and I did not stop until mile 22. That was when I kind of just started walking because the pain was really excruciating. I mean, it was just unbearable. And all I kept saying to myself was, dude, you got a little bit over 4 miles left. You can make this happen. Do what needs to get done. And, I was blessed to finish. I mean, like I said, I made sure that the aid stations got hit the aid stations, did everything that I needed to do in reference to that aspect. And, like I said, I went 22 miles, without, without stopping. So, they weren't my fastest paces, but I knew that if I would have stopped running before that, I probably wouldn't have made it to the finish line. And I just would have, been done. So, they always talk about the data. And data shows that typically less than 1% of the global population completes a marathon, and less than 2% who arrive to the start line don't finish. So I do and that was actually according to livestrong.com. In fact, in the 2021 Boston Marathon, over 15,000 runners participated, and a little bit over 250 people DNF'd. They didn't finish. So, people that show up to the marathons, a lot of times they do display that grit and want to finish. But, there's many factors on why people don't finish. I mean, you have people who hit low sodium levels, and I know that happens to me. Like, I mean, when I'm done running, I mean, there's nothing but like salt all over my body. Like, you can literally flake it off of my skin, because you lose a lot of salt during these runs. People suffer from heat exhaustion. Some folks even suffer from heat stroke, and of course, last but not least, injury. So I think that was something that was heavy on my mind. The night before, I just prayed. I said, God, just see me through, trying to make it to the finish line. And that's something that was near and dear to my heart, was to finish. A lot of things always go through my head every time, and I guess I play it all the time to remember the things that I didn't finish. I also, I think to myself of, when you start something, you have to finish it. And it's something that I preach consistently all the time, and, basically this whole experience, and anybody knows, who goes through this or whatnot, it's about building grit. It's not something we're born with, but it's like a muscle that we exercise in the body. It breaks down, you got to allow it to recover, and you really have to be consistent at it. I mean, we know that, when you exercise, you build yourself to be stronger. Whether if you want to have the biggest biceps or you want to have that 6-pack abs, and you're trying to, make sure, of course, abs are made in the kitchen, but, it also helps when you do, hit the gym and you hit those abs, they'll protrude a little bit more. But we already know that at the end of the day, what it comes down to is that, grit is the same way. It's a muscle that has to be built, and you're going to break down, of course, just like any other muscle. But at the end of the day, when you're willing to put in the work, the muscle gets stronger. And that's no different with people who display grit, But I think a lot of people in this world don't realize what they're capable of. And a lot of them don't even seek the opportunity to see what they're made of. So many people, it's not like this grit is anointed to, you know, the extra special. Um, you know, what's the old saying they say? They say talent will never be hard work because talent doesn't work hard. And that's absolutely true. And as long as you're willing to put in the work, this is something that could be accomplished. So, I recommend anybody see what you're about, see what you're made of. I mean, we fail, it happens, but the whole point is you never know if you don't put yourself to the test. And it doesn't have to even be physically, it could be mentally, getting yourself out of your comfort zone, doing something different. But any sign of difficulty, people are just quick to give up. And that's the most unfortunate part is the fact that folks want to give up and that's the route that they choose. So for example, for me, I'm a baseball coach for my son's special needs baseball team, and I've been doing this for about 3 years now, and it's been an absolute blessing because of course I get to share this special moment with my son, but I'm also helping out with these kids. And the crazy part about it was I remember this was before my son was diagnosed with autism. I was looking online because I wanted to, help in some capacity with, special needs children. I said, man, I started looking up websites, looking up to sign up to volunteer to help, children with the Special Olympics. So I was looking at all this stuff, and next thing you know, we fast forward a few years later, and, my son gets diagnosed with autism, and, they have this special needs, Miracle League Baseball League in my county. And, and it's something that is very near and dear to my heart because, this was something that I wanted to do even before I knew that, that he had special needs. And the thing that was, amazing about it is that when I see these athletes, because they're athletes, and these are the greatest athletes that I've ever had the pleasure to be around. The reason why I say that, it's because I look at professional athletes, I look at some kids that are in college, even to the lowest level, Pee Wee football, whatnot, and there's something missing, and you can see that it's missing. The crazy thing about it is that, many of our traditional athletes, they have a choice, and they're like, well, I'm not going to give it my all today. Well, I just can't do it no more. I just don't want to do it anymore. And the thing that I'm in absolutely awe of is the fact that I see these kids, they don't know any other way but to do. Like, there's no choice of like, oh, I'm not going to do that today. Like, they're giving it their all. Some kids, whether if they want to run from home plate all the way back home, like they hit it in the field, in the park home run, or they're going to first base, or they hit a double, whatever. Like, these kids, they really give it their all. And it's absolutely inspiring, So when I run, I understand and I look at all this stuff. And I always say it all the time to my daughter and to my wife and my son that, I hate running, but the reason why I do it is because I do it for those who can't. And I always hold people in reverence that say, man, I really wish I could, but I don't have the ability to do it. And why would I shortchange my God-given ability? And for someone who doesn't have the ability, who wishes they can do it, that they can't. And then I'm like, oh, well, I can do it, but I just choose not to because I'm lazy or I don't want to do it, I just don't want to do it. That's what they make cars for, right? No. So I always make sure that I push myself beyond my limits because not only do I want to test myself, but I also do it for those who can't do it. It's the same way that I had the mindset of joining the military. I fought for my country, and I fought for those who couldn't fight for themselves. You know, to uphold our Constitution. To protect the public, to make sure that you put the country first. Forever long live the Republic, right? So that's the way I look at pushing myself to go further. But I finished this run, and I must say, like, the greatest motivating factor that I had during this marathon, it was my daughter. My daughter was the reason why I finished this run. She's a cadet right now in the United States Military Academy at West Point, New York. She's obviously in school to become a officer in the United States Army. So, I'm very proud of her for that. And I always reiterate to her all the time, no matter what you do, you start it, you finish it. And that's exactly what my mindset was. And I just recalled me telling her that, and it rang big time in my head during this marathon. And I was hurting. And I had a point where I just couldn't go anymore. But, and my body, to be honest with you, it was failing me. It was failing me. So, I was just glad that my mindset was able to tap me into another place where I needed to go, and allowed me to cross that finish line and finish this marathon, because I always believe that I want to be a shining example for my children. It's like I never lived by the do as I say, not as I do. I've seen plenty of that growing up. I would never subject my children to that. I'm not going to ask them to do something that I wouldn't do myself. So I think it was very imperative for me to make sure that I finished. So overcoming adversity, what we're trying to do is we're trying to start. We don't dwell on the problem. We analyze it for a couple minutes, and then we're thinking about, taking the problem head on. So then that way we could finish it and see it through. But that's where we're at. But I'm very grateful for you guys listening to me today, listening to this podcast. I know this is kind of rough today. I'm still trying to get over this injury. It's been a very difficult couple weeks after the marathon. In fact, a little bit over a week ago, I ran a 5K after the marathon. And this let me know right there and then. I said, man, you got to lay it down for the rest of the year. You got to go ahead and call it for the rest of the year. And I know the year's still young. But I normally will run a 5K probably like anywhere from 26 to 28 minutes. 29, at worst. And, I was in A wave, and, I normally run good times. And it took me 51 minutes to complete a 5K, which is 3.12 miles. And what's crazy is I have a lot of reverence for people who run at this speed and are able to see it through, because this is tough. And when you run at this speed and you're giving it your all and you're coming in that 50-minute mark, 55-minute mark, I'm like, man, it's slow and painful. And you got to be a little crazy to say, I'm going to run a 5K, and you know that you're not going to get done within 30 minutes, but you still do it anyway. So kudos to those who run at that pace. For me, I felt like I was a high performance vehicle that had gotten something yanked out of it, somebody put a bat to the radiator, and I could go past Like a Dodge Challenger couldn't go past 45 miles an hour knowing that it can go well into the hundreds, right? But that's how I felt. And when I got to the finish line of that 5K, you know, it was the Hawks Fast Break 5K. I said, man, I'm putting it, I'm laying this down for the rest of the year. I'm done. I knew that I have some injuries that I need to deal with, so then that way I can properly recover. And that's just my approach right now. So, you know, another good thing too to recognize is you don't want to be a shell of yourself either. And know, man, you know, I need some recovery time. I need to take care of myself. I got to do a little yoga. You know, I gotta really get myself back to, you know, where I'm used to performing. So that was a very humbling experience. But I got a great quote right here. It says, "A river cuts through rock, not because of its power, it's because of its persistence." And that quote is, of course, from an unknown source. But I truly believe in that. I think with the power of persistence, you know, we can overcome anything. Obviously, overcoming adversity requires persistence. So that's one of those things that we want to make sure that we do and we try to give our all. But anyway, you guys have a question for me, you know, maybe on a future episode of Rolo Runs the City podcast, feel free to email me at rolorunthecity@gmail.com. That is rolorunthecity@gmail.com. And, you know, if you guys have any questions, maybe, you know, a podcast suggestion, maybe I can try to chime in on that. And, you know, we can definitely collaborate on that aspect and see if we can get your questions answered and try to give you the best information possible. But to me, like I said, the best way to not only get information is not to be a theorist, someone who's like, oh, well, in theory, this is what needs to get done and this is what's going to happen, but they have no idea because they're just theory based. I'm not going to be one of these analysts or doctors that do things in reference to like not really testing it out, not really being a practitioner. Like, you know, folks that said there's no way that you could ever, you know, possibly run a 4-minute mile. And then Roger Bannister goes out and does it. You know, it's like, because you can't run a 4-minute mile doesn't mean that it can't be done. So I'm definitely making sure that I am always practicing what I'm preaching. So if you guys have any suggestions for me, man, definitely shoot it to me at rolorunthecity@gmail.com, and I will do my best to go ahead and answer your questions. Y'all take care. Godspeed. This is Rolo C, and you guys already know what we're about, and you know what we do. Be the goat, never a sheep, and do not sleep on your dreams. Take care and Godspeed. Y'all take care.